welcome back to another episode of What's Hockey. As far as around that hockey, the segment we normally start off with, there's not too much off ice news, Keaton. Let's go straight into the playoffs. I'm going to talk about my hometown team, the Dallas Stars. They played two games in the time that we last recorded. Keaton, what were your thoughts on those games?
Well, they played pretty well. I mean, they definitely had to force that. What was it, 6 games? Or
Yeah, they finished in
yeah,
six.
that's what I thought. But just wanted to make sure. But yeah, I mean, they didn't want to get ousted, Colorado. So I mean, they had that comeback game, but it's really hard to come back when you're down that much. Um, but yeah, Stars played pretty well. They played pretty consistent, but yeah, I mean, feel like the Avalanche are just right there. They just need a little bit more, I guess, defensive play. Just kind of felt like there wasn't really much going on there. Because I mean, they didn't really have much, I guess, offensive puck power play time with the Star Series.
Well,
But
if you don't mind if I jump in real quick,
yeah, dude,
game
go ahead.
five. Game five was in Dallas. You and I both thought that the Stars would wrap the series up then, especially with the suspension of Valerian Nichushkin.
Yeah,
Stars had just won in Colorado, so having that home ice advantage and a chance to win the series, uh, it seemed like a really good opportunity. You mentioned the power play with Colorado. I was at the game and I was getting very frustrated because the Stars scored first in the first and second period. And in the last minute of each period, Colorado goes on a power play. In the first period, they score with like a second left on the clock. In the second period, they score with like a minute left on the clock. Um, and then in the third period, they do get two open ice goals, and they take it from there. But I mean, when they're a good power play team, the Stars penalty kill has to improve a bit. It hasn't been good enough. We've gotten some shorthanded goals, but we got to stop the other team from scoring too. Um, and so, as far as the power play goes, that is going to give me some pause going to the next series. We'll discuss Edmonton in a second. But
that
game
was
six, Keaton, what were your thoughts on game six? Double overtime.
yeah. I felt like that game took forever. I definitely fell asleep before it was over. It was pretty interesting. The Stars technically won twice, but
Yeah,
there you go.
dude.
The disallowed goal was kind of dumb. It seemed pretty similar to the Sam Bennett goal that was allowed almost previous, like the week before. I don't really know exactly when it was, but yeah, pretty dumb. But yeah, the Stars shut it out and they end up winning. So
Yeah, and I,
yeah,
I don't want to dwell on it too much, too, but it was the consensus of the entire league from objective observers that they made the wrong call on the ice, and then the command center went ahead and made the wrong call, saying that it's interference. You have Duchesne, who's outside of the blue line. You have Georgiev sticking his stick around, kind of hooking him, and then you have Makar shoving him into Georgiev. There's no part of that play by Duchesne that was interference. It was illegal. There was no part of it that was. And the game should have ended a good 40 minutes before it actually did. But regardless, again, don't need to dwell on it because the Stars come through. Duchesne hits the game winner in double OT, and the game ends at 1:50 local Dallas Central Standard Time, which
disgusting.
killer for anyone who has anything to do the next morning. But the Stars do get it done, thank goodness. And so they move on to play Edmonton. Keaton, Edmonton took care of Vancouver in 7 games, which is not what we predicted. Uh,
Yeah, it was a little
Actually, I'm
interesting.
sorry. I'm sorry. We after our last podcast did on our last podcast, I should say, we did predict Edmonton winning in 7. What are
Because it
your
was
thoughts on the series?
2-2 at that point. But yeah, I
Yes.
mean, ultimately it felt like the Canucks kind of had some sense of life, but they really didn't have much power because it felt like Elias Pettersson was just kind of a shell of himself. He didn't do anything. I mean, I threw a few bets on him and he never covered. He was pretty trash. Um, the that was just kind of his, I guess, slow start, not really playing very well, and I mean, the other part of the team just didn't really handle well outside of that. I mean, that was kind of their go-to guy for the main part of the season, and he was just hitting that cold streak. So, um, you know, they
It's
played pretty well at the end of the day, but I just felt like the Oilers were the better team, and they had a lot more power
well, and
packed.
to me, it's that the Oilers played better for longer in the game. I feel like it's consistent with Vancouver that they get down and try to make the late run. In Game 7, they're down 3-0, and they do get two back, but it's not
Hmm.
enough. Edmonton, and this is what I worry about a little bit with Dallas, is Edmonton gets up on teams. Edmonton's power play and penalty kill they lead the league throughout the playoffs right now. And in Dallas, they've not had a great penalty kill. Their power play could step it up. Some of it might have to do with Edmonton playing the Kings, and Vancouver might be a little easier to get a power play goal on them than the average team, and maybe an easier power play to stop on their end. But I they're a dangerous team, man. Their top line is just it's filled with just killers between Draisaitl, of course, Connor McDavid, and so you got to play a clean game if you're Dallas going into the next series. Um, and we'll give our prediction on that in a second. But yeah, that's just to say that Edmonton just very dangerous, and that's a part of the reason that they got by Vancouver, who going into that series weren't getting a good amount of offensive possessions and or quality possessions, and so
They didn't
they
really have many shots on goal overall. I
no.
mean, they honestly scored a lot, but I mean, the amount of pucks they put on goal just isn't coming close to what Carolina, what Florida
And
Panthers were doing, what all these other teams were doing. It just felt like they just didn't really have much going for them.
And I will say, to be fair, Edmonton blocked a good amount of shots too. Edmonton's
Sure.
defensive line, they played very quality defense. They were part of the
Bouchard,
reason that Bouchard and God, they got another guy. Uh, I'm
some
blanking
other
right
guy.
now. But that defensive line stepped up big time as well. So that definitely contributes to Vancouver's limited shots on goal. But again, Vancouver just try and go for the late runs, late heroics. They had one where they score with like 10 seconds left, and then their opponent scores with 2 seconds left.
Yeah.
Uh, so Edmonton advances in that series. Vancouver, you did your best, but it just wasn't enough. The great Thatcher Demko
I mean,
couldn't
Rick
stop.
Tocchet played his team pretty well. I mean, get as far as he did. I mean, honestly, with it seemed like a shell of a team. What was their offensive power and the main of the offseason? I mean, they didn't have Thatcher Demko. I believe in that game they didn't even have. I believe it was JT Miller, but I mean, they were down a few players. I mean, obviously they're going to be a shell of themselves if that's the case. But I mean, without their top goalie, without their top main guy with JT Miller, I mean, I would assume that they're probably not going to be playing very well. But I mean, with what they had, like I said, Rick Tocchet played pretty well, had a pretty good strategy, etc. Made some adjustments, but like you said, just wasn't enough. Unfortunately, Vancouver is out of here, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Dallas and Oilers
And,
have
and
to
last compliment to
give us.
Talkit. When we recorded our preview for for the series between Vancouver and Edmonton, we went as far as our next recording session, and we both said that it'd be Edmonton up 3-1 in that series, and we probably would have predicted that they win in 5 or 6. 6 would be kind of stretching it if Vancouver really came out. It is the playoffs; you got to give the other team credit, their quality. So maybe 6, but to force 7 was impressive on their end. You mentioned a myriad of reasons of things that could have held them back some, and they played well. So yeah, credit to Vancouver, but catch you later, bud. You're out. Uh, let's move on to
Yeah,
another series that wrapped up in the time since we last recorded. The Florida Panthers went ahead and beat Boston. Keaton, they had a game 6 the day after we last recorded. Want to fill us in on that?
It was a pretty physical series overall. I'm not exactly sure what happened in the last game, but I do believe that the Floridas just kind of poured it on.
It was two
Um,
to one actually. It was a
oh,
tighter game.
really? Was
Yes.
it the one before that they just kind of fucked over?
Game
Because
six.
I felt like
Should have
it
had
was
it
either
ready. Or I'm sorry. Game six
not
and
that
game
one.
five were both 2-1 games with Boston winning,
I
and then
guess
it
it
was
was game.
3-2. Game
Huh.
three,
There's
games
one
two and
game I
games three.
remember that they just poured it on. It's like
Yeah, games
yeah,
two
six
and
to two. That was
three,
three.
6-2 and 6-1.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, the
But the
series is
last three
very
games very
physical.
tight. Yeah.
Yeah, and Boston, they have a very defensive approach. I mean, they have a very big stud in Jeremy Swayman. Pasternak played pretty well overall. But yeah, I mean, I believe Marchment got hurt, so or Marchand, sorry, and didn't play for I believe 2 or 3 games. Um, but yeah, I mean that's just playoff hockey. You're gonna get hurt, and like he said in some interview that he had, that's the goal for the other team. It's just to hurt the other team as much as possible, just to be able to get that advantage. I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's what it is. But obviously, want to be playing as clean as possible. Obviously, just playing hits, try not to get as many penalties and not egregious, I guess offenses, injuries, etc. Like slashing some guy with your skate. But overall,
It's
that's
yeah,
pretty
it's funny. I'm sorry to
defensive play.
interrupt you. Sorry to interrupt, but as soon as you say like clean, it's funny because hockey is one of these sports where like you almost want to intimidate someone and like come out hidden, but smart. You have to be smart because you go on that power play and you put your team at a man disadvantage. It is it's terrifying. Like as a fan, you're
Yeah,
watching your
if you
team.
play way too physically, you're at this point down 5-3, 5-on-3 or whatever, and you just up shit creek without a paddle. There's no reason to be playing like that.
Yeah,
But I mean, if you're playing smart, you're playing, heavy on certain ends. You've got some players that'll, think twice to, try to get the puck around the end. So,
sure, 100%. So
stuff
it's
like that.
you got to be physical, but you got to be smart with your hits as well. You got to make sure you're not cross checking, tripping, hooking, all these very, you know, split second things where like your skate's just out of position for a half second, or the person you're about to check goes down half an inch as they're skating past you, and you're hitting them in the head or in a dangerous area, and now you've put your team at a disadvantage. So it's
Yeah.
just playing physical but crisp with what you do and what you're trying to do. But yeah, Florida gets it done. You and I both, we actually differed in our last episode where I said that Boston would force a game seven. You had it ending right there in game six, and it did end in game six. Now we'll move on to the other Eastern Conference series where we had the Rangers and the Hurricanes. How did that look to you? What'd you take away?
I mean, overall, I felt like the Canes played very well. It was just, the Rangers got those OT wins. I mean, I believe they had gone to overtime twice in that series. And I mean, if it just went the other way, the Carolina Canes would have won. So it's just one of those things. They played pretty well. I believe they had a myriad of shots on goal over the whole series as far as the Carolina Canes are concerned, but they just didn't really land. Igor Shesterkin is playing very well, very good hockey. Probably the best goalie outside of maybe even Ottinger at this point between the teams
Yeah,
that are
sure.
left. Because I don't know. I
Even
mean, Bobrovsky's pretty.
Bobrovsky, yeah,
He's
Bobrovsky's
great,
up
but
there.
yeah, I mean, I guess the main three, but I don't know. I don't even know the Oilers goalie's name, so he can't be that good. But
Ilya something. What's the dude's name? I'm sorry. Give me a second. I'll pull it up while you keep talking. Sorry.
yeah, dude, totally.
Oh, Picard has been in there.
Pickard.
Pickard.
I believe he had like another. It was Skinner, Stuart Skinner, maybe. He's like the
last
backup.
game was Stuart Skinner. Yes. So
Yeah,
they've got a few
they've been
goalies in there.
going off and on between the two. But I mean, if you don't really have a stud and you're at net, I mean, you're not gonna alternate, right? So yeah.
Well,
Either way, I
yeah,
mean, I
continue.
guess if you have two studs, sure, but like, I mean, it just feels like if you know that your goalie's gonna be the main guy, then I mean, you're not gonna sit him for any reason for
I
the
would
most part.
expect. Well, I would expect you to see a backup goalie or two this series. Don't know how many. I'm pretty sure Bobrovsky's played every game. Oninger for sure has played every game, and I could see them resting him. Maybe even tomorrow night in game one, resting Ottinger. That way, you put in Wedgwood and just keep him fresh for the remainder of the series. It's not unheard of to put in the backup in the playoffs. Just
I know it's
for
not unheard of, but
freshness.
I mean, they honestly had a problem, and with the Vancouver Canucks kind of giving them what for, I mean, it just kind of felt like they were just kind of searching for options at that point, just kind of figuring out what would be better, what would be working. And I mean, yeah, granted, you might need some break here and there, but I mean, I believe he had two or three games out of the series, and I mean, out of seven, that's almost half. So
Yeah,
yeah, either way.
yeah. And so that recaps each series in the past round. Now going forward, do you have, or let's start with predictions, I suppose. In our major bracket, the big overall one, um, you had, of course, the Rangers losing to Carolina, but everything else you got
Awesome.
correct: Dallas, Edmonton, and Florida. And I did not. I had no chance in the Florida bracket because I had them losing in the
Classic.
first round. So that top quadrant is just an L for me. But I did have
Classic.
the Rangers beating Carolina, and we both had Dallas and Edmonton advancing to this stage. Give me your predictions. Now that we made that before the playoffs began, now that we're here, now we know the final four teams. Give me your predictions for these series.
I mean, honestly, I still believe in the Panthers coming up. I mean, New York is playing very defensively, and it just honestly depends on what they're going to do with Matt Rempe. Because, I mean, as long as he's in the lineup, I mean, all hell could just break loose. So you never really know what's going to happen with the Rangers lineup. So if Rempe plays, it depends on what he's going to be doing. It's just kind of a unstable catalyst at that point. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting series. I still believe in the Panthers. I think the Panthers might take it in seven.
Okay.
Might go to all the way just because they are playing pretty good hockey on both ends. Shesterkin and Bobrovsky both are playing pretty well defensively, and you got Truba and Montour on either side as well. But yeah, I believe that's probably going to go to Game Seven. I think that the Panthers do have the edge with
Okay.
the offensive power with Reinhardt and Kachuk and what's that other guy's name? You know?
Barkov.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, Barkov.
Yeah. Did you
But
say
either way, they've
Verhage?
been
They
playing.
got a few guys.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
Verhage. There you go. That's the guy who I was thinking of. But
Forsling
yeah,
has stepped up.
yeah,
Yeah, they got a good
they've
amount
got
of
a good,
guys.
good amount of studs. But
Montour at times stepped up. Rodriguez. I mean, they've
yeah,
got a pretty deep team and a quality team at that. I mean, that's going to be a tough one
I
for
just
the
feel
New
like
York
they're the more
Rangers.
complete team in comparison to the Rangers. I mean, the Rangers do have a pretty complete team. They've been playing pretty well. I mean, they got the President's Trophy, obviously. But yeah, I mean, with that, I mean, like I said, they've got that curse hanging over them. So who knows?
See, and I'll go ahead and make my prediction and throw that curse out the water. I will hold true and firm with what I
So
had
they're gonna beat the
initially.
Stars in the Stanley Cup.
That hold on, I didn't
That's the
say.
curse. That's the curse, buddy.
Well, I'm just saying the curse doesn't end in this series. I should say.
Okay.
I'm gonna
All
stick with
right.
my
Okay.
original prediction from the beginning of the playoffs when I had New York going to the Stanley Cup Finals. I'll say they go ahead and do that, but I do think it will go to seven, exactly like you're predicting. And the reason for that, in my opinion, is just that I think Florida's path going against Tampa Bay and going against Boston you weren't tested as much as, and mind you, Washington Capitals didn't test the Rangers, but I think Carolina definitely did. And I think
Hmm.
Carolina, I think you get over the hump against them in Carolina the way they did. I think it provides a boost of confidence. I think it provides not just confidence in each individual's play, but trusting in your teammate. Like you mentioned, Florida has all these stars. New York doesn't have as big of a name. I mean, they do have Artemi Panarin, which, of course, household name. You got, but I think guys like Zibanejad, guys like Kreider, who had a big game. Of course, Trocheck, who I think has the most points on their team right now for them.
Roslovich.
Roslovich. I mean, like they're a deep team, and so the goalie matchup's going to be very entertaining between Shesterkin and Bobrovsky. But if I'm not wrong, I've seen some goals put up on Bobrovsky, even though he had some hell of a say. God, I can't speak right now. He's had some insane saves. Had a zesty save against Boston, I should say.
That was crazy, wasn't it?
It was, and so
I mean, I honestly
yeah,
believe that Boston did pretty much give them that test. Not in the test, I guess, the same test as the Canes did to the Rangers. But I do believe that the Boston gave them a really physical game. I mean, honestly, they might have won the series, but I mean, they've probably got a lot of bruises heading into the next series. So, I mean, they tested them very physically. I mean, they had that all-out brawl. I believe it was game 3, maybe 4. Um,
yes,
can't remember,
I
but
think it
it
was
was just that big.
3. When it was 6-2, right? I think that's game 3.
Yeah, yeah. I guess it was 3 then. Yeah, it was just crazy. Kachuk going ham, beating up Pasternak. But yeah, I mean, yeah, just gave him that physicality. But yeah, I do still think that they're gonna win. But yeah, I do believe that the Panthers are gonna give them more of a test than the Carolina Canes could have. So
I
it's gonna
I mean
just
they should, right?
an interesting series, all nonetheless. I do believe in the next series coming up with the Stars and Oilers. I think that's going to be a little bit more lopsided, in my opinion, but probably Game 6 lopsided, not necessarily Game 7. But
Dallas in
yeah,
6.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I do believe that the
Yeah.
Oilers are probably going to get some good games because it does feel like the Oilers kind of have a sense of frustration when they can't get things going. And with the Stars having a pretty good defensive play, I do believe that they're going to frustrate them. And I can't remember which game it was, but one of the games I read an article of Andrew Kane was visibly upset in the locker room and just kind of caused some chaos. So that could be good or bad, and you never really know. So I mean, if they're really down and frustrated, you could just kind of just make them dig their own grave. So just kind of seems like that's kind of their advantage in a way, as well as being at least in my opinion, a more complete team than the Oilers. But yeah, just going to be another interesting series to watch. But I think it's going to be a little bit more lopsided, in my opinion.
Gotcha. Man, the thing that worries me, and I mentioned it earlier in the podcast, is Edmonton's power play percentage and their penalty kill. I don't think they've seen a team like the Dallas Stars. And the Dallas Stars have been tested in each series going against Vegas and Colorado, which I think is the toughest route that any of the 4 teams remaining have gone through. And so on one hand, I say Dallas, you've gone through what should be the 2 toughest teams in the division, and you've come out on top. Then some people would say, all right, well then Edmonton should be nothing. You got rid of the Avalanche in 6th, and you should do the same to Edmonton. But on the other hand, I think Edmonton, they're good in special teams. They have very high quality players who can score late. Dallas does too, but I think it's going to be a battle for the entire series, and I say it goes 7 with the Stars winning it. So that honestly, if it goes 7, we have 2 of the conference championships going to Game 7. Both teams are going to walk into the Stanley Cup Finals limping. It seems
Beat up.
just beat. But yeah, I think it seems like there's been a game or two in each series the Stars have played where they kind of just they don't show up, or they're just a little lackadaisical. I say that happens at least once during the series, and then I say Edmonton does get two genuine good quality wins, but the Stars do pull it out in seven.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be very tough, man.
I mean, both these series, they're just going to be a fabulous thing to watch. Both things, just they've got some good
It'll be
teams, like we've said, with all
fabulous.
three out. Yeah, exactly. Just fabulous series with both series. With three out of the four teams having just major studs at the goalie position. They've got some great offensive power on either set. I mean, you got Draisaitl and David. You've got Wyatt Johnson, Jamie Benn, etc. Duchesne, even. I mean, you've got a lot of players on the Stars. The Sam Reinhart, Kachuk, etc. It's going to be a great team to watch, and just going to be interested in what's going to happen. But yeah, let's see what's going to happen at the Stanley Cup. Who's going to go? But I do believe it's going to be the Stars and the Panthers. It's going to be an interesting come up. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I don't think you could have said it, but well, maybe a little better, but you said it very
Yeah,
well there. I mean, both series going on in the Eastern and the Western Conference, they are to me they have showed well obviously they've won their series, but these are the four best teams in the league. I mean, you could argue maybe Edmonton versus Vegas. I think Edmonton is better than Colorado. Regardless, these teams they've deserved to be here. They showed why. So I think we're gonna get like I predicted 2 7 game series. I think there's not a ton separating the quality of these teams. Um, and so yeah, I think we're in for some very good hockey. Which, as an objective fan, not even as a Stars fan, that's what you want. You want these games going down to the wire. You want some OTs, unless, of course, the game starts super late and now you're going to bed at 2 in the
I do
morning.
believe they shouldn't have the series starting super late anymore because I don't think that we have any
There are no
West
more
Coast.
overlapping games.
Well, not
As
only that, but West Coast games as well. I don't think is
well,
Edmonton in
part of the
the
reason
West Coast.
wasn't that it was West Coast. It was that the East Coast would take the earlier block, and then the
No, I know,
Stars would
but
have
yeah,
to
but then
take.
I mean, yeah,
Well,
but they also played
Avalanche
Vegas
aren't
and
a
they
West
played.
Coast team. They're like a
Yeah, but they're
Midwest
Mountain
team.
Time. That's 1 hour behind us. That's still some sort of leeway. That's what I'm
Yes,
saying.
but the game didn't start at 9 because of
But all of the
Colorado. It
games
started
that
at
were that
9
started at 9 did
because a
have
team
that.
in New York or Carolina played
I
at
know,
7.
but it was also to the fact. I mean, they're not going to put you at New York starting at 9 p.m.
Of course, because that'd be 10 over there. That's what I'm saying. Is the
I'm
Eastern
saying.
Conference determines what time the Central Standard Time fans have
Yeah,
to
bro.
stay up to.
Yeah, dude.
Anyway,
Yeah,
why
bro.
why did we get more hot about start times of games than
It's just
the
start times,
actual
bro.
games that have occurred? Anyway,
It's probably because
yeah.
we have the same basic understanding of who's going to win.
Sure. Yeah, honestly, we do. Save for Florida and New York, but even then, I don't think your argument is bad at all. Like I could absolutely see it going Florida's way. So I mean, that also contributes to me not needing to argue with you on that. Florida's team is deep as hell. The Rangers have a ton of underrated guys. I think it's going to be a fantastic series, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, those are our predictions right there. I got the Rangers in 7. You've got Florida in 7. I've got Dallas in 7, and you have Dallas in 6. So, man, I can't wait to see it. They start tonight, of course. Rangers versus Panthers at 7 o'clock, and then
Central
tomorrow
time.
night Central Time. Yeah. Oh, we
Just
have
in
a
case.
big East Coast following that's going to get
Hey,
confused.
man, we might have some West Coast followers too. You never know.
Yes, the Cali boys love hockey. Well, there's some people out there I shouldn't diminish.
I mean, the LA
the fandom.
Kings play in the West Coast. But anyway,
Anyway, and Stars start up their series tomorrow night at 7:30 Dallas Central Standard Time. I keep putting Dallas in there. It's just Central Standard Time,
it's
but
just Central, dude. There's
hey,
Mexican
I'm from
cities that have
Dallas.
Central Time.
They do. They stole our flow. No, I'm kidding.
What? Okay.
That didn't make any sense. Anyway, but yeah, those are our predictions. That's our recap of the past series. God, I cannot say that word.
That's
and
fine. It's just series.
and that's our preview for this upcoming round. We will see y'all next week. Y'all take care. Peace out.